So this isn't so much in conversation, actually. This is such a power-packed panel to begin with two of the most accomplished academicians of the country here. So I am not going to stand between them and you for a long time. I'm just going to introduce the topic. The topic is Ek Bharat, Shreshth Bharat. How do we take education from here? And I am sure that both these learned personalities have lots to say about this. The only thing is, because we are running short of time and we are trying to stay as close to the timetable as possible, they don't have as much time as I would like them to have. So I am going to keep my interaction to the minimum, and I would request Santishree Pandit ji, the Vice-chancellor of JNU, to put forth her opening statement.
எல்லாருக்கும் வணக்கம். சென்னை இஸ் மை சிட்டி. நான் இங்கே வளர்ந்தேன் சென்னை 28 மந்தவள்ளியில். ஸோ படித்தது ரோஸ்ரி மெட்ரிக் ஸ்கூல், பிரசிடென்சி காலேஜ், இல்லைன்னா மாநில கல்லூரி. ஐ எம் ஆல்சோ த ஃபர்ஸ்ட் உமன் அண்ட் ஆல்மனஸ் வைஸ் சான்சலர் ஆஃப் JNU. ஸோ தமிழ்நாட்டிலேருந்து போன பெண்ணு தான். அண்ட் வி ஆர் சேஞ்சிங் JNU. We have brought in JNU multiple narratives. உங்களுக்கு தெரியும் that we have renamed our think tank from Jawaharlal Nehru to Vidyaranya Institute of Knowledge and what is Advanced Studies. It is being on 29th, the Sringeri Mata Shankaracharya has blessed the statue of Vidyaranya, which has already come into JNU. With it, we also have Thiruvalluvar and Lord Nataraja. So that is Vikasit Bharat. Lord Shiva has come in, and through the Odisha chair, Jagannath will come in. So Vishnu also comes in, and hence JNU is as Indian or as Bharati as any university. I am just going to go to the topic due to paucity of time. The first issue I want to put before all you learned audiences, who suppressed the Indica narrative. As it was said in the last session, the definition of history is facts are sacred. Interpretations can vary. But JNU historians changed it. And the Marxist wokes, or what I call the cancel culture of the Nehruvian state, and including the Dravidian state, is interpretations are sacred, facts can vary. And that is what has happened. Why? I'll give you the Nehruvian consensus. Martanda Varma defeated the Dutch. Anywhere in the history books? Or we have Rajendra Chola, also called as Gangai Konda Chola. Gangai Konda nana north-south were divide. And all of you know in Purananur, also, which is older, Sangam literature, you have the mention of Rama and Sita. So my question is, how are we alienating this? And I think this is basically a colonial project, or the project of the invaders. And this is very important. And basically this began with the Aryan invasion theory constructed by the colonials, especially Max Muller. Max Muller did it in the 1800s for the benefit of the colonials. And this was done by Alexander Campbell. And for Tamil Nadu, it was Bishop Robert Cardwell, who wrote the Dravidian grammar. It is in that book he put in the seed of the so-called Aryan Dravidian divide, which is again goes against the racial theory. Sarvepalli, the Radhakrishnan said, we are a mixed race. See, many of us, do we even look South Indian? When I studied in JNU as a student, many people thought I was a Punjabi Jat. Because they said, you don't look like a South Indian at all. So we are a mixed race. So this theory, and even that the Brahmins are Sanskritized and they have come from outside. This is also again a myth. Why? The Raki Gargi excavation that was done in Haryana proves by carbon dating that we are a civilization that is 8,000 years old. So even the Europeans were picking up stones at that time. How can they come and civilize you and me? We civilized them. If you know, we were an outward-looking civilization. Same with the Cholas. We did not normalize loot, plunder and rape. And in history, you cannot normalize it. Whereas the Cholas did it by trade and commerce. The proto-states, the whole of Southeast Asia was done by the Tamil kingdoms. You don't have this type of plunder. So, if you see clearly this whole myth, it is brought out very well in the book by a famous historian called Airavatham Mahadevan. He wrote, and his student K. Balakrishnan, who is a civil servant, wrote, please read it, a very good book called Indus to Vaigai. There is, if you see the Keeladi inscription, the Tamil Brahmi script is very close to the Indus Valley script. So where is the division? So you break, and even this issue of caste, it is not Varna and Jati. So first they demonize the Brahmins, and then they demonize the Hindus or the Hindu culture or the Hindu phobia. So I call it cancel culture. Before the wokes and the left discovered it, I think our people were smarter. And I would only add saying that the idea of Kumari Kandam, the sacred geography, our connections up till Japan, the similarity between Japanese and Tamil. And hence this whole issue of or even see Shiva, who is the presiding deity of not only in Kashmir, but also in Tamil Nadu. Chidambaram is taken as the center of the universe, especially for, and if you read Unmai Velakam, verse number 36, it tells us that creation arises from the drum. Protection proceeds from the hand of hope. From the fire proceeds destruction. From the foot afloat gives release. It will be observed that the fourth hand points to this lifted foot, the refuge of the soil. I would tell many of you, please read Ananda K. Kumaraswamy's brilliant essay called The Dance of Shiva. And this greatly inspires. Now I would only try to finish up, because she has given me very little time, that one, we are the feminist civilization of the world. Draupadi is the first feminist, not Simone de Beauvoir. Sita, the first single mother. Kannagi, the first citizen activist. We are also the first nature-centric civilization, Panchabhutas. Tamil Nadu, Andhra Pradesh, you have the lingams named after the Panchabhutas. The Western people need not come and teach us on environment. And even on LGBT, Shikandi. So we are a very, very modern, so this whole idea of the modernization project does not work for us. We were much modern before even, tradition, modernity divide that the West brings in. Second is decolonize the Hindu mind. Please do not think that we are inferior. And we have the Nehruvian state cancel culture. We need to bring back people like Sri Aurobindo, who got his enlightenment in Puducherry. And Swami Vivekananda also. We have in Chennai or even in Kanyakumari. And Sarvepalli Radhakrishnan. I would say please read The Hindu Way of Life. This is extraordinarily important, and I think that if Vikasit Bharat, Ek Bharat, the universities, especially like JNU, which is India's topmost university, the most important is narrative power. We have achieved political power, but if you want to sustain political power, it is only narrative power. And narrative power is what? So please write, not only as Dandakumar ji say, talk, please talk, but also please write. University teachers, give research projects to your students on these gaps in history, which are huge. And let us bring back the factual history back, not the interpretative history. Because the interpretative history follows Goebbels. See, one thing, Hitler was intelligent, don't think he's an idiot. Joseph Goebbels said, tell a lie and repeat it 10 times. It becomes the gospel truth. That is what the JNU group of historians have done it. And we are trying to de-school everybody. And I hope we have succeeded and we are succeeding, but it's a long process. And each one of you need to be a part of it. And hence in JNU also we are changing the way we are doing research as well as this. So far last 2 years there's Shanti. We hope we'll get into prosperity phase as well. Thank you all, thank you.
Hello. Thank you so much, ma'am, for that very short but very, very impactful speech. And I'm glad you talked about the fakeness of the North-South narrative. For the life of me, I don't understand how Dravida, which was simply a word to describe geographically the location of the Indian peninsula, it means it is surrounded by Drava, liquid, on all three sides. So anybody who lives in this peninsula is Dravida. So how did the geographical term became associated with the identity politics is actually a subject of great study, and how it's been distorted. Yes, how it's been distorted and made into a racial term. But that's but I have a theory about this, and that relates to Dr. Chakradeo's topic actually. I think our decline started when we reduced our temples to just places of worship. They never were. They were institutions in itself. They were institutions of education, commerce, arts and crafts, Sangeeta, Kala, everything. And I would like Dr. Chakradev to talk about it. What roles did temples play, and what roles can the temples play in the idea of Ek Bharat, Shrestha Bharat in terms of education?
Very good afternoon. Thank you for that. Only briefly, I'll tell you, I'm an architect looking at temples through architecture perspective. That is what I learned in my education. And when I was learning, and then afterwards I became teacher of architecture, and then I was teaching history of architecture. When I was teaching history of architecture, I became slightly, I was disturbed to the core, and I started looking at things from their perspective. When Ferguson in his book says, this is by accident that Kailasha temple, such a beautiful temple, came up there. Then he also says that the books which he wrote down became the gospel for us. We architects were looking at his books, and all other books which were written down were based on Ferguson. And then Percy Brown came, which was a textbook for us. And beyond that, Satish Grover and other very few Indians who wrote history of architecture had those books with them. And accidentally, one accident, second accident, third accident, and we have the all beautiful temples scattered all around us. Then Claude Batley, who became the first head of the department of JJ College of Architecture, he says that, yeah, there are very good pieces of architecture around, and people have not realized it. Indians don't know about it. Let me do the documentation of these, and then when I do the documentation of these structures, I'll give the scholarship of 1,000 rupees. And he became a very great person of conservation of the Indian architecture. Yet at that point of time, the narrative that came up was, yet there is so much of distortion all over. There is no similarity and no order as it was there in the Roman architecture, because Roman architecture is what we were studying, and we cannot define the order. He didn't realize there's a diversity within us. And this diversity is the character, as was very rightly said by Nanda Kumarji in his first lecture, that we cannot have the history similar to theirs. Likewise, we do not have the description of our architecture as theirs. We do not have the ancient architecture and the middle architecture and the recent architecture. Architecture is a mirror of the society, and similarly, the way we were, the architecture was diverse. There's a diversity in entire India, and this diversity, when we look at it, is reflected through our architecture, through our temples as well. And we have though there is a continuity, we have a diversity in the expression of these temples from north to south and from east to west. All temples are temples, yet all of them are so different, so beautiful. These gems, which are scattered all around us, are the mirrors, are showcasing the thought processes and the technology which was prevailing at that point of time in our Bharat. Unity in diversity is what has been told to us all these years. Do we really want to say that it is unity in diversity or diversity in unity? So diversity in unity, if we say, then we consider our Bharat as one human body. And then we say my finger and my head and my legs and other things. But when we say unity in diversity, the leg is a different entity, eye is a different entity, and we're trying to pull them together and put them here. So if we have this complete change in our lookout, in our viewpoint, in our standpoint, only then we will be able to look at our Bharat in the real sense. Yes, through education it can happen, and education is a tool to change the society. Yes, we need to believe this, and we can make changes through that. We have been always studying that history of Bharat is more than 5,000 years old. We needed people like Michael Denodo to come here, British to say that no, there's something more to it. The river Saraswati, though it is hidden in Prayag, we have been saying Triveni Sangam, but we do teach in history of architecture also, and in many histories, that our history started with in 2500 or 5,000 years ago from now by Indus Valley civilization. Where has Saraswati civilization gone? Why have not been the research done, so much of research done by so many of, even in Pune, Vakankar organization and Bhandarkar organization, they are doing the research on Saraswati river. And what was that Saraswati river? And why on her banks the civilization which developed led to Indus Valley civilization, the merging of the two civilizations, the flow of the river Saraswati will show us the expanse of the entire civilization of Bharat. And on her banks we flourished. We flourished, and there are the best example with the remain small part of that existence is in the form of Sharada Peeth temple, which is now in Pakistan. Yet it's a example, best example, remaining example of architecture of temple university. We know about Takshashila, we know about Nalanda, but we hardly talk about Sharada Peeth. Sharada Peeth was full of all those treasures of the knowledge and the literature. How many years ago? We just don't know. It was a university in itself, and it was a temple. So what you rightly said, Shefali ji, temples were not just the places of worship. They were the places of worship of almost everything that the human race or human being should revere to or should do puja of. And this is the best and the oldest example remaining probably is that of the Sharada Peeth there. Then we have here Sringeri Peeth also. The library of Sringeri Peeth and the library of Sharada Peeth, if we compare, are the best examples where the education and temples were the same places. Who else would then you all know about how the Tanjore temple and the dance performances and learning the dance art. So dancing, music, and also the sculpture and art forms and the entire facade of the temple, which is so beautifully designed, that entire thing is a part of an education for we Indians or we Bharatiya, and right from those days till here. So every person in the society had to go to the temple for some reason or the other. And recently we have been saying that those are the temples and we are here in the society. So the entire formal education has been devoid of the spirituality because we have kept temples away from our entire life and some of us try to go to the temple only for some part of our day, maybe once in a week or maybe sometimes at the time of a festival. Sometimes, yes. So myself and my husband, we have made it a point that on every Saturday we will go to Hanuman Mandir and pray there. And for many years we have been doing that. Because unless we decide the day for us, see, there is a liberty given by our culture to us. We don't have to go on every Friday, but we can go on any day in the temple. So we make a rule for ourselves and we go there. So that's how probably the diversity which has been given and the flexibility which has been given to us by our culture can be reinterpreted by us in this manner. Then there is these temples which were the places for every social activity were also the places of education for us. And one example, my recent experience I would like to share with you all, how the continuity in the culture can happen through these structures is I went to Kolhapur where I had studied in my 11th and 12th standard, and after that, after 45 years, I visited recently last month, and I was looking for my house, my place where I had lived, and everything had changed and I could not even make out anything about my house also. But then I went to Kolhapur Devi, Amba Devi Mandir, and then I could relate everything because the mandir remained as it was. So those are the stable parts of our society. They are continuing there. The stability to the society, there has to be some focal point. These temples are the ones which are there. Who built them? And why should we know about these temples? We need and what is the connection with the education is what I am trying to put forward in a little given time with me. It's a vast subject and I don't know how to squeeze it down. But however, the formal education which my generation has taken, and even yours, everybody in this hall, is all about intellect, how intelligent you are, and how you can show your intelligence. But we as a human being are not just intellect, we are emotional also, and spirituality relates to emotions. So the education which actually was a part of a spirituality has been devoid of the spirituality, has been not been there. If the education happens in these temples, probably the spirituality can be brought back. And with that, the same curriculum can be taught in a very different way. National education policy talks about the multidisciplinary education. And when we talk about multidisciplinary education, at that point of time, a just thought came to me, and I talked to the President of Council of Architecture, that if you identify 10 such architects, gurus, who are gurus, and you give 5 students or 10 students to them and they teach them the way they want to. Maybe they teach them in a temple also. And they sit there and they teach them, and then at the end of some years they say these are the objectives they have achieved, so you should be able to give them the degree or the license of architecture. Similar thing could happen to any subject probably. But Vastu, which is a theory of architecture, which was never taught to us in our 5 years of curriculum. So there is a need to change the entire curricula of architecture. And we were taught climatology. India is a diverse country, and in this diversity, the reflection of climate is seen on architecture. Am I? Okay. I'll come to that. So this diversity of architecture which we see is reflected through architecture. Climate is seen through architecture, and that's why we have diverse architecture from north, south, east, west, and that's reflected in the expression of our temples also. These temples were, only one last point 2 minutes. There are many things coming, flooding in my mind, but I'll restrict myself to one point, that climatology is just one small part. Vastu Shastra, Sthir, Sthapati, and his entire study is inbuilt with the spirituality. That spirituality should come to education. One last controversial example. I am also a town planner, and I am also believe in the archaeological and conservation systems, which I have learned. In my student is sitting there, she knows about conservation, and this conservation concept is so contrary to the Jirnodhar concept, which is what was shown to us by our Prime Minister Modi ji, that Jirnodhar does not mean conserving the monument as it is. Unless there is an idol in the temple, we do not make a monument a temple. So we are not conserving the monuments, we want to restore the temples. So to restore the temples, Jirnodhar concept given in our agamas should be followed by us, and there are many things in our architecture which we need to study and express through our curriculum, education, and we need to revive those right from the school days to the general education and specifically to architecture education. Thank you so much. I might not have been very clear, I understand, but there are many thoughts coming up, that's why.
Thank you so much, and I'm really sorry that I had to cut short this session, but in the evening we have the governor's address, and since that is very, very strictly mandated that it should start and end on time, we have to work backwards. I cannot take any questions now because the next section is there and the speakers are already in the auditorium, but I am sure that both these learned academicians will be there. Yeah. That is actually a very, very good suggestion. But if you have any questions, I am sure that post this session, and we'll be breaking for lunch, you can always speak to the speakers. Thank you so much for being such patient listeners, and thank you, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am, for...
Thank you so much for this wonderful session. I request Shefali Vedya to honor our panelists here. May I request you to honor Ujwala Chakradeo, Dr. Ujwala Chakradeo and Dr. Santishree Dhulipudi.